I'm sorry, sir, you're not listed as her father.
What do you mean I'm not listed as her father?
The elevator doors opened to the pediatric oncology wing with a soft chime that felt obscene in its cheerfulness. Kong Minho stepped out, his Italian leather shoes silent against the sterile white floor. The scent hit him first, antiseptic, mixed with something sweeter, something meant to mask death. Children's drawings covered one wall, stick figures holding hands under yellow suns that would never set. "Mr. Kang?" A nurse approached, clipboard pressed against her chest like armor. "I need to verify. I'm here for Lena," he said, already moving past her. 20 years of boardroom dominance had taught him that hesitation invited resistance. The nurse quickened her pace, her rubber soles squeaking. "Sir, please wait. I need to check." He stopped at a door marked 407. Through the small window, he could see her, a girl with dark hair, spread across a pillow too white, too clinical. His daughter. A tube ran from her arm to a machine that beeped with mechanical indifference. "Sir," the nurse positioned herself between him and the door. "You're not on the visitor list. I'm her father." Something shifted in the nurse's expression, not sympathy, but something worse. Pity. She glanced at her clipboard, then back at him. When she spoke again, her voice dropped to that particular register medical professionals use when delivering bad news. "You're not listed as her father." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and clean as a scalpel. Behind her, through the window, the girl, Lena, his daughter, the child he'd last held when she was small enough to fit in the crook of one arm, shifted slightly in her sleep. Minho's hand, still raised to push open the door, fell to his side. "There's been a mistake." "There's no mistake, Mr. Kang." The nurse's voice remained professional, but her eyes held something harder now. "I've triple-checked. You can speak with Dr. Chen, but without legal guardianship or the guardian's permission, how much time does she have?" The question came out raw, stripped of the corporate polish he'd spent decades perfecting. The nurse's expression softened slightly, but her position didn't change. "Dr. Chen will discuss that with the family. I am family. Not according to the law." She paused, seemed to wrestle with something, then added quietly, "You might want to speak with a lawyer, Mr. Kang. But if you're asking me, time isn't something she has a lot of." The elevator chimed again behind him. Voices approached, a woman's voice, warm and tired, speaking in gentle tones. Minho turned to see a middle-aged woman in a faded cardigan, carrying a reusable shopping bag, filled with what looked like children's books. She moved past him without a glance, and the nurse's entire demeanor transformed. "Ms. Park, how is she today?" The woman's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Asking for more stories. Always more stories. The nurse unlocked the door Minho couldn't open, and the woman disappeared inside. Through the window, he watched her settle into the chair beside Lena's bed, watched his daughter's eyes flutter open, watched a smile break across that pale face like sunrise. He'd built an empire, commanded boardrooms across 3 continents. His signature on a document could move markets, create jobs, destroy competitors. But he couldn't open this door. Minho turned and walked back to the elevator, his reflection ghosting across the polished floor. In the metallic surface of the elevator doors, he saw what the nurse had seen, an expensive suit on a stranger who'd arrived 10 years too late. The doors opened. He stepped inside. As they closed, he caught one last glimpse of room 407, of the life continuing behind glass without him. His phone buzzed. Another meeting, another merger, another thing that had once seemed urgent. He silenced it. 10 years earlier, Minho had stood in a different room, equally sterile but far more expensive. His attorney's office occupied the 43rd floor of the Gangnam Finance Center, all glass and steel, and the kind of view that reminded you of your place in the world's hierarchy. The prosecution has nothing concrete, Attorney Kwan said, spreading documents across the mahogany conference table. But they're building a narrative. The media loves a narrative. Minho studied the papers without really seeing them. Numbers, accusations, financial records that told a story he knew was technically true, but fundamentally incomplete. KH Industries hadn't violated any laws. They'd simply operated in that profitable gray space where legality and ethics diverged. If I testify truthfully about the offshore accounts, then you verify their narrative, Kwan interrupted. His voice carried the patience of someone explaining basic arithmetic to a child. You transform speculation into fact. The company won't survive the scandal. 1,200 employees out of work. Pension funds decimated. Your family's legacy destroyed. But if I say nothing, you say nothing, and they have no case. The investigation stalls. Media moves on. In 6 months, this is forgotten. In a year, it never happened. Kwan leaned forward, his expression earnest. You can rebuild from silence. You can't rebuild from admission. Minho's phone vibrated. A text from Zuri. Lena's asking when you'll be home for dinner. I told her soon. Was I lying? He stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. His daughter would be 7 now. 7. The age where every promise mattered, where soon and later carried weight, where time still meant something real and not just quarters and fiscal years. There's another document, Kwan said, sliding a thin folder across the table. Legal protection for your family. If the worst happens, if somehow they build a case, this ensures they can't touch your personal assets. Zuri and Lena will be protected regardless of outcome. Minho opened the folder. The language was dense, corporate, designed to obscure rather than illuminate. But one phrase stood out. Relinquishment of paternal rights in exchange for asset protection. This removes me as Lena's legal father. Temporarily. It's protective custody, essentially. If you're indicted, if somehow you end up facing charges, they can't pursue your family. It's insurance, Minho, nothing more. Does Zuri know about this? Kwan's pause was answer enough. It's better if these things remain confidential. Attorney-client privilege protects both you and your family. Once the investigation concludes, we can reverse it. Simple paperwork. Minho thought about Lena's drawing on his desk at home. Stick figures holding hands. Daddy, written in crooked letters above the tallest one. He thought about Zuri's quiet strength, the way she'd stood by him through every crisis, every late night, every broken promise. Once this is over, he said slowly, I'll fix everything. Kwan smiled. Once this is over, there won't be anything to fix. You'll have made the right choice, Minho signed. The pen was heavy, expensive, a gift from a business partner whose name he could no longer remember. His signature looked the same as always, bold, confident, decisive. The kind of signature that belonged on contracts and executive orders, not on documents that unmade fatherhood. He returned home after midnight. The apartment was dark, except for a single lamp in the living room where Zuri sat, still dressed, a book closed in her lap. How did it go? She asked. It's handled. She studied his face with the particular attention she reserved for moments when words told one story and expressions told another. What did you have to do? What I had to do. He loosened his tie, suddenly exhausted. It'll be over soon. 6 months, maybe less. Then everything goes back to normal. Normal. She repeated the word like it was foreign, something she'd once known but had forgotten the meaning of. What's normal, Minho? You leaving before Lena wakes up? Coming home after she's asleep? Promising her weekends that turn into conference calls? That's not fair. You know what's at stake. I know that our daughter asked me today if daddies live at offices. Zuri's voice remained quiet, but something in it made him stop. I know that she drew you a picture of our family, and when I asked her why you were so small, she said it was because she couldn't remember your face clearly. The words hit harder than any prosecutor's accusation. Minho sank onto the couch, the weight of the day, the week, the year pressing down on him. Once this is over, you keep saying that. Once this is over, once the merger completes, once the market stabilizes, once. Zuri stood, the book falling from her lap, a children's story about a father who promised the moon. When does once become now? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I understand that you're drowning in something you chose. She moved to the window, looking out at the city lights that never truly dimmed. I'm not asking you to stop working. I'm asking you to remember what you're working for. He wanted to tell her about the document he'd signed, wanted to explain that it was protection, insurance, a temporary measure that showed how seriously he took their safety. But the words stuck in his throat, tangled up with Kwan's voice. Better if these things remain confidential. Instead, he said, give me 6 months, please. 6 months to stabilize everything, and then I'll take time off. Real time. We'll go somewhere. Just the 3 of us. Zuri turned from the window, and in the lamplight, he could see tears she refused to let fall. 6 months. I promise. She nodded slowly, then walked to their bedroom. The door closed with a soft click that sounded nothing like anger and everything like resignation. Minho sat in the dark apartment, the city glittering beyond the window, like all the promises he'd made, and all the time he'd assumed would wait. Fine. Months later, Zuri and Lena were gone. No note, no fight, no dramatic confrontation. He came home one evening to find the apartment half empty, in a way that suggested planning, not impulse. Lena's room had been stripped of her favorite things, her stuffed rabbit, her books, the nightlight shaped like a star. The closet still held clothes, but only the ones she'd outgrown or forgotten. Zuri had taken her memories, but left his obligations intact. He called her phone. It rang directly to voicemail. He called her mother, her sister, her best friend from university. None of them had answers, or none they were willing to share. His investigator, the same one he'd used for corporate intelligence, found nothing. It was as if they'd simply dissolved into the fabric of the city's millions, 2 more faces in the crowd. The investigation into KH Industries concluded 3 weeks later. Insufficient evidence, case dismissed, public apology issued by the prosecutor's office. Minho stood on the courthouse steps and delivered a statement about justice prevailing and truth emerging. The cameras loved him, dignified, restrained, victorious. That night, he returned to the empty apartment and opened the folder Kwan had given him 5 months earlier. He read through the document properly this time, not skimming the dense legal language, but parsing each clause, each phrase, each word. Relinquishment of paternal rights. Permanent unless contested within statutory period. Statutory period, 6 months from signing. He checked the date on the document. 5 months and 3 weeks ago. He had 1 week to contest it. Minho sat at his desk, the document spread before him, and tried to calculate the cost of fatherhood against the cost of silence. The company had survived. The employees had kept their jobs. The family legacy remained intact. He thought about calling Kwan, demanding the paperwork to reverse the relinquishment. But then what? Zuri had left deliberately. She'd taken Lena somewhere he couldn't find them. If he reversed the document, would it change anything? Would it bring them back? And wasn't she right to leave? Hadn't he proven over and over that KH Industries came first? That meetings mattered more than bedtime stories? That his daughter's face could fade from memory while quarterly reports remained crystal clear. The week passed. He didn't contest it, and time, indifferent and relentless, moved forward. The years that followed were marked by the kind of success that business magazines celebrated and competitors envied. KH Industries expanded into Southeast Asia, then Europe, then North America. Minho's face appeared on covers. His quotes appeared in articles. His presence appeared at galas where everyone important gathered to celebrate importance. He never remarried. His assistants, there were 4 over the years, each eventually departing for better work-life balance, learned not to ask about his family. His executive team knew he had a daughter somewhere, maybe, but the topic was marked as thoroughly as any classified corporate strategy. In his office, in the bottom drawer of his desk, he kept a locked box. Inside, 3 photographs of Lena at various ages, a drawing of stick figures holding hands, and a child's hair ribbon that had somehow survived the move. He never opened the box during business hours. But sometimes, late at night, when the building emptied and the cleaning staff moved through the floors below, he'd take it out and try to remember what his daughter's laugh had sounded like. He hired investigators periodically. They found nothing, and eventually, he stopped asking them to look. Zuri had been thorough. She'd erased them both from his life with the kind of precision he'd once admired in her accounting work. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent his career acquiring things, building things, controlling things, and the one thing that mattered had slipped through his fingers because he'd assumed it would always be there to acquire later. On Lena's 18th birthday, he still remembered the date at least, he sat in a restaurant in Singapore closing a deal worth $300 million. The other executives toasted success. Minho raised his glass and thought about a girl who was legally an adult now, who might have graduated high school, who might be planning for university, who might be planning a life in which he'd never existed. The deal closed. The stock price rose. The world continued spinning. And somewhere in that world, his daughter continued living without him. The call came on a Tuesday morning in autumn. Minho was reviewing acquisition targets when his secretary buzzed through. "Mr. Kang, there's a Dr. Chen from Seoul National University Hospital on line 2. She says it's urgent." He almost dismissed it. Hospital fundraising, probably, or a board position they wanted him to consider. But something in his secretary's voice made him pick up. "This is Kang, Minho." "Mr. Kang, I'm Dr. Chen from the Pediatric Oncology Department. I'm calling regarding a patient, a minor, who was recently admitted to our care." The doctor's voice was professional, measured, but carried an undertone of something else. Discomfort, perhaps. "We ran a comprehensive genetic screening as part of the diagnostic protocol, and your DNA appeared in our database from a corporate wellness program your company sponsors." Minho's hand tightened on the phone. "I don't understand." "You're listed as a biological match to one of our patients, a 99.9% probability of paternity." A pause. "Mr. Kang, do you have a daughter?" The office seemed to tilt slightly. Through the window, Seoul spread out in familiar patterns, towers and traffic, and the ordered chaos of 10 million lives intersecting. Somewhere in that sprawl, his daughter was dying. "What's wrong with her?" Dr. Chen's exhale was audible. "I can't discuss specific medical details without the guardian's permission. What I can tell you is that the prognosis is poor. Months, most likely. We're pursuing treatment options, but..." Another pause. "Perhaps you should come to the hospital. We're located in Jongno-gu." "I know where you are." He was already standing, already reaching for his coat. "I'm coming now." "Mr. Kang, wait. There's something you should know before..." He hung up. His secretary appeared in the doorway as he strode past. "Cancel everything today. Everything this week. I don't care what it is." "Sir, the board meeting. Cancel it." He took the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. his heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with physical exertion. 13 floors down to the parking garage, every step counting time he'd already wasted, time he couldn't reclaim. His driver started to get out, but Minho waved him off and took the wheel himself. The drive to the hospital passed in a blur of traffic lights and lanes. He changed without signaling, rules that suddenly seemed absurd when measured against the urgency pounding in his chest. He'd found her. After 10 years of absence, of silence, of searching and not searching, and pretending the searching didn't matter, he'd found her. And she was dying. The hospital rose ahead, all white concrete and glass windows that reflected clouds without comment. Minho abandoned his car in a zone marked for ambulances only and ran toward the entrance, his expensive suit jacket flapping behind him like wings that had forgotten how to fly. That was when he'd encountered the nurse, when he'd learned about visitor lists and legal guardianship and all the ways that biology meant nothing when weighed against bureaucracy, when he'd learned that he'd run out of time before he'd even known the clock was running. Now, standing in the elevator descending from the pediatric wing, Minho pulled out his phone and called the one person who might have answers. "Kwan? I need you to pull a document, something I signed about 10 years ago, relinquishment of paternal rights." "Minho? What's this about?" "Just pull it. Now. And tell me, can it be reversed?" The sound of keyboard typing filtered through the phone, then silence. Then, "Why are you asking about this now?" "Can it be reversed?" More typing. A longer silence. "Technically, yes. But it would require approval from the current legal guardian. And if they contest it, which they likely would based on the circumstances, you'd need to demonstrate compelling reason for the reversal. A judge would have to approve it. The process could take months, maybe longer." "I don't have months. Minho, what's happening?" "My daughter is dying." The words came out flat, factual. "She's in the hospital right now, and I can't see her because I'm not legally her father. Because I signed a document you told me was temporary. Because I trusted you. That document protected you. It protected nothing." Minho stepped out of the elevator into the hospital's main lobby, where people moved with purpose toward destinations he couldn't name. "It cost me everything." "I did what you asked me to do. You wanted to protect your assets, your company." "I wanted my family safe. Instead, I erased myself from it." He found a quiet corner near a window overlooking the parking lot. "Who's her legal guardian now?" More typing. "According to the records, guardianship was transferred to Park Zuri. That's the mother, correct?" "That was her maiden name. Where is she?" "I can't tell from this. The document just lists her as the sole legal guardian. If you want a contest, I already told you, there's no time. There has to be another way." Kwan's voice softened slightly. "I'm sorry, Minho. Really. But legally, you have no rights here. Your best option is to appeal to the guardian directly. Convince her to grant you access." Minho looked up at the hospital tower, counting floors until he reached pediatric oncology. Somewhere up there, Zuri was making decisions without him. Zuri, who'd left without a word. Zuri, who'd spent 10 years hiding their daughter from him. "Find her for me," he said. "I need an address, a phone number, something. Whatever it costs." "Minho, whatever it costs." He hung up and stood in the afternoon light, watching people come and go from the hospital, visiting families, departing families, families in the process of becoming or unbecoming. None of them knew how lucky they were to simply walk through those doors. His phone buzzed, a text from his secretary. "Board is asking about rescheduling. When can I tell them you'll be available?" He typed back, "Tell them I'll be available when my daughter is well." Then he deleted it and wrote instead, "Indefinitely unavailable. Family emergency." The response came immediately. "Understood. I'll handle everything." Would she? Could she? 20 years of building KH Industries into an empire, and he was about to discover whether it could survive without him for however long, indefinitely, turned out to be. He thought about going back upstairs, trying again to see Lena through the door window, but the nurse had made it clear he wasn't welcome. So instead, he found the hospital chapel, a small, quiet room with wooden pews and windows that let in light without revealing sky, and sat in the back row. He'd never been religious. Faith required believing in things you couldn't see, and his entire life had been built on what was visible: balance sheets, contracts, buildings that scraped clouds. But now, facing something no amount of money or power could fix, he found himself doing something he hadn't done since childhood. He prayed. Not for forgiveness. He knew better than to expect that. Not even for a miracle, though he'd pay any price for one. He prayed for time. Just a little more time. Enough to tell Lena something. Anything. Enough to say the words he should have said 10 years ago. The chapel remained silent. No voices answered. No signs appeared. Just the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and the distant beeping of machines keeping people alive one heartbeat at a time. 3 days later, Kwan called with an address. She's living in Mapo-gu, small apartment, works as a bookkeeper for a local nonprofit. I can't confirm if the daughter is with her. Medical privacy laws prevent the hospital from telling us anything. Minho wrote down the address on his palm, the pen pressing hard enough to leave marks that would last for hours. Thank you. Do you want me to come with you? For legal support? No, this isn't a negotiation. He drove across the city in evening traffic, the address leading him away from the gleaming towers of Gangnam into older neighborhoods where buildings hunched together and laundry hung from balconies like colorful flags. The area wasn't poor, exactly, but it carried the weight of people working hard for modest lives. Small restaurants, repair shops, convenience stores with handwritten signs, advertising deals. Zuri's building was 7 stories of aging concrete, with air conditioning units jutting out like mechanical barnacles. Minho parked across the street and looked up at the windows, trying to imagine which one held the life his family had built without him. 4th floor, apartment 403. The building had no elevator. He climbed stairs that smelled faintly of kimchi and cooking oil, passing doors decorated with children's drawings and delivery menus. At 403, he stood with his hand raised to knock, suddenly aware of how completely unprepared he was for this moment. What did you say to the woman you'd failed? To the life you'd abandoned? He knocked anyway. Footsteps approached. The peephole darkened. Then nothing. Zuri? His voice sounded strange in the narrow hallway. I know you're there. Please. I need to talk to you. Silence. It's about Lena. The hospital called me. I know she's sick. I know. He pressed his forehead against the door, all his corporate composure, crumbling. Please, just talk to me. More silence. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. Go away. I can't do that. You did it very well for 10 years. The words hit like physical blows. Minho stepped back, steadied himself. You're right. You're absolutely right, but please let me see her. Let me. The door opened 6 inches, held by a chain lock. Zuri's face appeared in the gap, and the years fell away even as they remained visible in the lines around her eyes, the gray threading through her hair. She looked tired. She looked angry. She looked like someone who'd spent a decade raising a dying child alone. Let you what? She asked. Let you fix things? Let you throw money at the problem until it goes away? Let you walk back into her life like you have any right to be there? She's my daughter. No. Zuri's voice was steel wrapped in exhaustion. She's my daughter. You're just the man who provided half her DNA and then signed away any legal connection to her. Did you forget about that? The document you signed. So she knew. Of course she knew. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself. She started to close the door, but he put his hand against it, not pushing, just present. Please, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for a relationship. I just want to see her. Once, just to... His voice broke. Just to say goodbye. Zuri's expression didn't soften, but something flickered there. Pain, maybe. Or recognition of a pain that matched her own. She doesn't know you, Zuri said quietly. She knows a man named Marcus, who's been in her life since she was 8. A good man who reads to her, who takes her to doctor's appointments, who sits with her when she's scared. That's who she calls Dad. The name hit harder than any accusation. Marcus. Another man had raised his daughter, while he'd been building towers and closing deals. I'm not trying to replace him. Minho realized he was crying and didn't bother to hide it. I just want her to know I existed, that I cared, that if I could go back. But you can't go back. Zuri's eyes were wet too now. None of us can. And what you want, what you need, I can't give it to you just because you finally realized what you lost. She's been through enough without having a stranger appear claiming to be her father. Then don't tell her who I am. I'll be anyone. A family friend. A donor. I don't care. I just need to see her. Please, Zuri. Please. They stood in the hallway, 10 years and 10,000 failures between them, while somewhere in the apartment behind her, a girl neither of them would ever see grow up was living the last months of her life. Finally, Zuri spoke. She made a wish. Through the hospital foundation, she wants to visit Jeju Island, where I grew up, where I used to tell her stories about. Zuri's voice wavered. They're trying to arrange it, but the cost, the medical equipment she'd need, I'll pay for it. Of course you will. That's all you know how to do. Write checks and expect it to fix things. I'm not expecting it to fix anything, but if it's something she wants, something that would make her happy. You don't get to make her happy. You don't get to swoop in at the end and play hero. Zuri wiped her eyes roughly. But I won't stop you from funding the trip. For her sake, not yours. And you don't get to go. You don't get to see her face when she sees the ocean. You don't get to be part of her joy. The cruelty of it was perfect and perfectly deserved. Thank you, Minho said, because what else was there to say? Zuri started to close the door, then stopped. That document you signed, you know it wasn't legally necessary, right? Your lawyer lied to you. The company's liability was never tied to your parental status. He just wanted to make sure that, if you went down, you'd go down alone. The door closed. The lock clicked. Minho stood in the hallway for a long time, processing this final piece of information. Quan had lied. The protection had been unnecessary. He'd given up his daughter for nothing. No, he'd given her up because it had been convenient, because signing a paper was easier than fighting for her, because he'd believed he could fix everything later, once things calmed down, once the crisis passed. Later had become never. And now, never was all he had left. He arranged the trip through the hospital foundation, anonymously. The cost was astronomical. Medical equipment, specialized staff, private transportation, accommodations that could handle Lena's needs. He paid without hesitation, without negotiation, without ever adding his name to any document. The foundation coordinator called to thank their generous anonymous donor. Minho listened to her describe how much the trip would mean to Lena, how she'd been telling everyone about the beach where her mother grew up, how this wish had given her something to look forward to during treatment. Will you be attending the departure? The coordinator asked. We like our donors to see the impact of their generosity. No, Minho said. I won't be attending. But he went anyway. He stood at the airport, far enough back that Zuri wouldn't notice him, watching as they wheeled Lena through the terminal. She looked impossibly small in the wheelchair, a blanket across her lap despite the warm weather. Her hair, when had she cut her hair, fell in a short bob that emphasized the delicate bones of her face. Marcus walked beside her, one hand on her shoulder. He was younger than Minho expected, maybe 40, with an easy smile and a comfortable way of moving that spoke of someone at peace with his place in the world. He said something that made Lena laugh, and the sound, clear and genuine despite everything, pierced Minho's chest. That laugh. He'd forgotten his daughter's laugh. Zuri walked on Lena's other side, her hand resting on the wheelchair handle, her expression soft in a way he remembered from better days. They moved as a unit, the three of them, with the practiced coordination of people who'd navigated difficult things together. A family. Just not his family. The nurses from the hospital joined them at the gate, checking equipment, consulting with Zuri about medications and schedules. Lena waved at a child passing by, her gesture full of the unself-conscious